Baker Mayfield seems ready to roll against the Arizona Cardinals. That and more on today's episode of Locked On Bucs.
You are Locked On Buccaneers, your daily Tampa Bay Buccaneers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, and welcome into this episode of Locked On Bucs, your daily podcast covering the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network. I want to thank you for making Locked On Bucs your first listener view every day. Don't forget you can subscribe or follow for free on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. And of course, you can follow along on Twitter. I am James Yarcho at JYarcho_Bucs, credentialed member of the media covering the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, here with you every Monday through Friday along with the everydayers. And for that, I want to share my appreciation for your continued support of the show. One of the ways you can support the show is become a Locked On Bucs insider. You're going to get news, rumors, updates, general thoughts, one-on-one conversations with me via text message. Go to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnBucs or click the link in the show notes to become an insider today. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you're going to get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. A very happy day after Thanksgiving to all of you. Hope you guys had a great time celebrating with your family, your friends, your loved ones. You enjoyed some good food. You enjoyed some good football. But now it is time to talk about the Buccaneers and the Cardinals this weekend. How to mitigate risk, predictions, all coming up in a little bit. But starting this preview episode off with the news that it appears that Baker Mayfield is going to play Sunday against the Cardinals. Todd Bowles spoke to the media about it after practice and said, quote, "He looked good today, so he's trending to play." Then Todd Bowles went on to say, quote, "He had to get well. He was very limited on Wednesday. He did a little more yesterday. He moved around perfectly today. He moved around, so he was fine," end quote. This is obviously big news, but I'm not sure if it's good news. I've said all week that I thought Baker should sit out of this game, get better, heal up a little bit, but you cannot expect Baker to take himself out. It appears as though the coaches and the training staff are confident enough that he will be okay if he goes out there and plays. So everyone kind of hold your breath. Cross your fingers, light your prayer candles, whatever you have to do to make sure that Baker Mayfield gets through this game without the injury getting worse, because it's not going to take much. Going down on that left shoulder on a sack, scrambling and taking a big hit from the side, this could certainly turn ugly in a hurry if he's not careful. But seems as though the Bucs are not taking the Cardinals lightly, which is probably why Baker is in play to play on Sunday. They understand the situation that they're in right now, needing to get a win, so they want to put the best players on the field that they possibly can. That would include Bucky Irving making his return after a long absence, as well as Haason Reddick, who will be ready to go against Arizona. Todd Bowles was asked about both of those guys and said, quote, "I think it's a reset for them to come back. Everybody else has kind of been playing the whole time. To get them acclimated and still do what we need to get done is going to be important for us," end quote. As for Bucky specifically, Bowles said, quote, "We'll put him in. Once he gets in, we'll see how he is rolling. And then between him, Rashad, and Sean, we'll kind of go with the hot hand," end quote. I'm going to talk more about the run game in a little bit, but I certainly expect Bucky to be gradually worked in to that equation. He is not going to come out there and immediately get 70% of the snaps right out of the gate. Tucker has played well. Rashad has played well. Those guys will still need to be heavily involved against the Cardinals. The only players ruled out of this game as of right now are Benjamin Morrison and Rashad Wisdom for the Buccaneers. So you have Jamel Dean back, which will be huge since the Cardinals have one of the hottest receivers in the league over the last month in Michael Wilson, as well as the likely return of Marvin Harrison Jr. It's not officially official, but Cardinals head coach Jonathan Gannon said that Marvin Harrison Jr. has gotten his wind back. He's doing well, so he appears poised to get back on the field this week for an offense that has been throwing the ball like crazy. Now, Cardinals players that have been ruled out for the game are running back Trey Benson, who still has not been activated off of injured reserve. We talked about him on the crossover episode. And then offensive lineman Will Hernandez and Christian Jones. You have running back Imari DeMarcado, safety Dadrian Taylor Demerson, and defensive lineman Walter Nolan. So they're losing key offensive linemen for this game, as well as a key defensive lineman for a defense that is already very susceptible to the run. That's all good news for the Bucs, especially with the return of Bucky Irving. As for the Bucs, they have quite a few players listed as questionable: Bredesen, Dean, Irving, Baker, Nelson, and Reddick. All of them were full participants in practice on Friday. All of them were either full or limited participants on Thursday. So barring any big setback or surprises, all of them will be suited up and ready to roll at Ray J on Sunday. The Cardinals had guys like Kelvin Beachum, who didn't practice until Friday, where he was limited. And then cornerback Max Melton, he was held out of practice on Thursday. He came back in a limited capacity on Friday. They are both listed as questionable. It appears they will be able to go. The other big one to remember, and I go back to the crossover that I had with Alex Clancy. If you didn't catch that because it dropped on Thanksgiving, make sure you go back and check that out. Great stuff from Alex, who does an absolutely incredible job covering the Cardinals. Cornerback Will Johnson. That is a huge guy for the Arizona Cardinals. He was limited on Wednesday and Thursday, full participant Friday. So it appears he is ready to return to the field. That means we're going to get Ohio State, Michigan on Saturday, and then we're going to get Ohio State, Michigan in Tampa on Sunday. I cannot wait to see Emeka Egbuka and Will Johnson go at one another. And many of you are going to remember that I talked about Will Johnson in the lead up to the draft, and he was one of the guys that I didn't like. I felt like his last year in Michigan was a big step back from the year before. I felt that he was trending in the wrong direction. He has more than proved me wrong. He's been absolutely outstanding in the secondary for the Arizona Cardinals. So that is a massive boost to that secondary, to that defense that is pretty solid. They can do some damage. They can take the ball away. You have Budda Baker back there. You have Will Johnson now. That is a defense that might surprise you given the Cardinals' record, given the way that they've lost some of these games. But don't get it twisted. That Cardinals defense is a tough one to go up against. I do want to jump into the chat for a couple of minutes here because you guys are absolutely killing it. Tones Mac, this is a great question because I haven't talked about it a lot. Tones Mac says, any news on J-Mac? Very concerned. So Jalen McMillan was at practice last week. He was not participating, but the neck brace is off. He's starting to ramp himself up. It sounds like there is a legitimate possibility that Jalen McMillan, as well as Mike Evans and Kalijah Kancey, can all return sometime in the month of December. So with Jalen McMillan, what you have to remember is this is a very delicate injury to come back from. We are talking about broken bones in his neck. You rush him back too fast, one hit could end up absolutely derailing this man's entire life, not just his career. So they're taking it slow. They're taking all the proper precautions. They're letting him work his way back, at a safe speed before he returns to the field. But it does sound like the Bucs will get Jalen McMillan back on the field before the playoffs begin. And we've talked about that a little bit. You want to, get these guys going, slowly. You want to integrate them a little bit, get them used to kind of all the other pieces on the offense, and gradually introduce these new weapons so that it's not all at once and they can start to find a little bit of a rhythm. So no need to be super concerned about Jalen McMillan. He will be back sooner than later, but you have to remember the delicacy, dealing with that neck injury. You could be talking about paralysis. You could be talking about life-altering complications from that injury if he comes back too soon. Destined for greatness, man. I hope Ray J blows up when they announce 7 this Sunday. I hope so too. And look, Ray J needs to be popping. People need to fill that stadium. I've mentioned you can get tickets for pretty cheap. We're talking about the induction of Simeon Rice into the Ring of Honor. He's a guy that did not make the semifinalist round for the Pro Football Hall of Fame, even though he should have. But this is going to be a big game for the Bucs. They can get back on track. You're going to get a couple of these pieces back. You're going to have Bucky Irving back in the fold. You're hopefully going to start a new win streak for this team. I know Bucs fans are a little frustrated and a little dejected right now, but this is a game that if I was able to, I would make sure that I was in the stands for this one because it's going to be a fun one and it should be a Buccaneers win, but just to support Simeon Rice, if nothing else, and show the love that he earned and deserved during his time in Tampa and helping them win that first Super Bowl back in Super Bowl 37. All right. How do the Bucs mitigate risk against the Arizona Cardinals? That is coming up next on today's episode of Locked On Bucs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you missed the start of the game or you want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team is the one making that late push. The defending champion Oklahoma City Thunder are red hot, and they are the favorites to win the NBA Finals at plus 155, followed by the Denver Nuggets at plus 700, the Cleveland Cavaliers at plus 950, and the Houston Rockets at plus 1100. Meanwhile, the Buccaneers are 3-point home favorites over the Arizona Cardinals this week with an over-under of 44.5, and Emeka Egbuka has dropped to plus 230 to win the Offensive Rookie of the Year, trailing wide receiver Tet McMillan, who is now the favorite. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Thank you again for making Locked On Bucs your first listen review every day. And thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. So proud to be a part of this network and have been with them for a very, very long time. All right. You guys already know that I'm going to preach that the Bucs need to run the ball more than double the amount of times that they pass it on Sunday. Baker is banged up, and even though it looks like he's playing, you want to minimize any potential danger that he could be put in. That means having him turn around and give the ball to someone else, let them do the dirty work. But there's more than just Baker at stake here. When I talk about mitigating risk, everybody's brains immediately went to, well, that means how do they protect Baker Mayfield? How do they prevent that AC sprain from getting even worse? How do you avoid Baker taking the big hits? But it's more than just him. Let's talk about Bucky Irving. I told you at the top of the show, the Bulls said that they are going to ride the hot hand. That doesn't mean that if Bucky doesn't rip off 5 yards of carry in his first drive, but Tucker does, that they're going to sit Bucky the rest of the way. Instead, what I think it means is that they're going to break up the timeshare based on who is making the most of their opportunities. I think going into the game, the plan is probably going to be that Bucky ends up with somewhere between 35 and 40% of the snaps, while Tucker and Rashad are around 25 to 30%. This is the recipe for success, not just on the ground by constantly having fresh legs in the game against a defense that you're hopefully wearing down with this run game, but also from the standpoint of not giving Bucky too much work too fast, not having Baker sit back in the pocket against a really talented secondary in Arizona, which could lead to coverage sacks. Now, that percentage breakdown, maybe Tucker is busting off 6-7 yards a carry, where Bucky's getting 3 to 4, Rashad's getting 3 to 4. Okay, so now Tucker slides into that 35 to 40%, and then Bucky slides back, and he and Rashad are in that 25 to 30 range. I don't think this is going to be a situation where all three running backs do not get involved heavily in the run game. Now, Baker needs to find ways to get the ball out quick, whether that's dump offs to running backs, short slams, out routes, crossers to his receivers. You don't need him pushing the ball 20 yards down the field constantly in this game. You dink, you dunk, you slice, you dice your way to, 14, 12, 15 play drives that just wear on that defense. Those defensive linemen will start to get less pressure. They'll be a little bit slower, a half a step off the snap. And then those guys in the secondary, they're going to start to slow down a step or two from chasing those receivers all over the field on these short, crossing routes, or, having to chase them through the second and third levels, because they do get a quick hitch and then they're off to the races. That's when things are going to start to open up a little bit, and you can start to be selective in taking those deeper shots. I also think that the return of Ben Bredeson is going to go a very, very long way. I see some of you talking about the offensive line in the chat. Evan mentioned it back on Tuesday. Baker is panicking in the pocket because that interior pressure has been getting to him all year long with the constant merry-go-round of offensive linemen that he's had to deal with. That interior pressure has been a lot. Now you're going to have a little bit more of a steady presence on the left side. That's going to allow for some protection help to slide over to the right side and give Baker a cleaner pocket to work with. It's also going to open up some lanes in the running game for Bucky, for Tucker, for Rashad. Bredeson was pretty solid in run blocking. I'm not going to say that he was elite or anything like that, but he was solid and reliable in run blocking before getting hurt. He was certainly reliable and pretty good last year as far as run blocking went. It's not as good as his pass blocking by any means, because his pass blocking is on pace for his best season of his career, according to PFF. But the overall upgrade that Bredeson himself provides the rest of the offensive line, because he is back, it's going to play a pivotal role in this game, both in being able to establish and maintain the run and, of course, protect Baker and that injured shoulder. Beyond that, you're also looking to Haason Reddick. He is returning from multiple injuries, so you're going to have to treat him like the Bucky Irving of the defense. Lower snap counts than you're used to seeing, which means having a healthy rotation with Anthony Nelson still going out there on a semi-regular basis. Reddick, we've talked about it. He's not having an eye-popping year as far as the stat line is concerned, but he is playing good football, or he was before the injury. And the Bucs pass rush as a team, that was far more effective when he was on the field compared to when he was off of it. Reddick's pass rush rate is the third best of his career since 2020. His run defense has been really reliable. He has been dropped into coverage a lot this year, but he's also performing in coverage at the second best rate of his career. So it hasn't been all bad. That said, I want to see him getting after the quarterback, not going up against a running back or a slot receiver in coverage, or especially Trey McBride. I am really concerned about that McBride matchup in this game, because you can't put a linebacker on him or he's going to wind up with a career high in receptions and yards in a game. So what do? You shouldn't drop an edge rusher to cover him. You can't rely on Levante or Servassier Dennis to cover him. Levante 2 years ago, yeah, he could go up against Trey McBride. This year, let's call it what it is. Levante is not the guy that can go sideline to sideline and overcome other deficiencies on the defense like he used to be able to. If it's me, I'm probably going to have Tykee Smith on him in coverage more often than not. But for the love of God, do not have these edge rushers or linebackers covering McBride, or he will cook you. The biggest thing is you're just getting these key players back. You can't take Bredeson in and out because it's going to mess with the flow and the chemistry of the line. But for Bucky, for Reddick, you lower their snaps and you work them in during certain situations. Maybe you give Bucky a drive, then you give one to Tucker, then you give one to Rashad before going back to Bucky. Maybe once you're in the red zone, you're going to have Bucky in on third downs, or maybe between the 20s, that's when you're going to have that pony package where you're going to have Bucky and Rashad, or Bucky and Tucker in the backfield on those third downs. As for Reddick, maybe you alternate with Nelson on first and second downs, but then Haason Reddick is your third down guy. These guys don't need to take on their regular full workload the first week that they are back. Bucky's been out since week 4. Reddick hasn't played since the Lions game. You ease them in and use them situationally. That's not only going to keep them fresh, but it's going to allow you to build up to getting them back to their full regular snap count. I'm going to jump into the chat again real quick. Super Bake Bowl says, tell Baker not to run on any first downs this game. If I had his number, I would. I'd shoot him a text, be like, look, Bake, maybe don't take off and run in this one. If you do, slide. For the love of God, slide. Don't fight for the extra yards. Don't lower your shoulder to try to bowl over some dude that you're going to tell to get their weight up. Slide. You do not take any unnecessary hits in this one. Let's see. We got Danny. Can we let him field loose and play him in run defense, blitz him more and more? I'm glad you bring up Winfield because I am going to talk about him in a little bit, but this is a game where I think the Bucs would be best suited to have Tykee working more as a coverage safety, kind of going back to how he played last year as the nickel corner, because you need someone who is playing at the level of Tykee Smith to cover Trey McBride. He's probably the best tight end in football right now. You need someone with legit cover skills that has the speed to make sure that he does not get you for those chunk plays, and then let Antoine play that center field kind of position. Let him kind of be back there and be the ball hawk that we know he can be. Yeah, of course, you're going to send him on a couple of blitzes here and there, but I really want him kind of staying back there to be the ball hawk, while Tykee Smith is more of the tight coverage, man up kind of guy in this particular matchup. Then again, as Reddick is able to get his legs under him a little bit and start to play a few more snaps, Tykee can go back to doing what he's been doing all year, which is playing at a Pro Bowl level. All right, we are going to have predictions coming up next on today's episode of Locked On Bucs. Wrapping things up here on a live preview edition of the Locked On Bucs podcast. Just as a reminder, Evan's bold prediction was that the Bucs defense was going to get 5 sacks. His player of the game was the running back trio. We're going to let that slide. With all of them being involved in this game, it was it would have been tough to pick just one. So I'm letting him just have that entire trio. But he did change up his score prediction. He is now saying 26-24. Still the Bucs, still a Chase McLaughlin field goal for the win, but bumped up those points just a little bit for both sides. All right. My bold prediction for this one is that all three, I'm going to play off of Evan's player of the game here. All 3 Buccaneers running backs will find the end zone. These are the guys that you have to look to really carry the load and lead this offense. All 3 of them have been good when on the field. All 3 of them are dangerous as pass catchers, but only one has the quickness and tackle breaking ability of Bucky Irving. That said, these guys have all been able to find ways to score this season, whether it was on the ground or through the air. I think all 3 find a way to score in this game against a run defense that is among the worst in the NFL in yards allowed after contact, and that have given up quite a few explosive plays of their own this season. My predicted player of the game, shout out to Danny. I'm going with Antoine Winfield Jr. We are overdue for an Antoine explosion. He had one against the Saints, to be completely fair. It just didn't pan out because the referees were idiots and don't understand how football works. But this is going to be an opportunity for someone with Winfield's ball skills and ability to anticipate plays to really be a difference maker in the pass game. And we know the Cardinals are going to be very, very pass heavy. They are going to chuck it 40 plus times in this game. They are going to sling it all over the place. And Brissett, to his credit, has done a great job of protecting the football. But Antoine has a knack for finding the ball and turning it over. There's another pretty impressive safety on the other side of the field in Budda Baker. So look for Antoine to try to one-up him. And I'll say that Antoine in this game, you can call this a bonus bold. I'll say that Antoine is directly responsible for at least 1, maybe 2 takeaways for the Bucs defense. It can be an interception, it can be a forced fumble, but Antoine is going to have an impact in this game. And if they utilize these guys in the secondary the way I think that they should, again, Todd Bowles knows more about football and coaching defense than I ever will, but it just seems like the smart play to me. Let Antoine be that center fielder, let him go make plays, let Tykee shut down the Cardinals' number 1 receiving threat, which is not Marvin Harrison Jr., it is Trey McBride. As for my score prediction in this one, I think this is a get-right game for the Bucs. And if you guys haven't been doing so, go ahead and drop your bolts and your players and your scores in the chat. We'll get to those in just a second. This is a get-right game for the Bucs. The defense is going to have some mismatches in order to get after Brissett, and they don't the Cardinals don't offer much in the way of a run game. You have Benson out, Connors out, DeMarcado is out. So Bowles is going to be able to pin his ears back and send guys after the quarterback all day long. That's going to lead to some sacks. It's going to lead to some errant throws and ample opportunities to take the ball back for the Buccaneers offense. For the Buccaneers side, throwing the ball against Arizona is risky. Leaving Baker to sit back there looking for an open guy is even more risky. There are going to be plays out there in the pass game. You just can't force them. Grizz has to pick his spots and make sure that the run game is churning so that they can set these things up off of play action, which is where we know Baker plays some of his best football. Abuka is going to get plenty of targets. Otten is going to get a lot of targets. Godwin and Tez are each going to have a couple of chances here and there. I like the Bucs to make a statement in this game. I want to pick them to win by more, but the Cardinals only like to lose by one score in the most ridiculous ways imaginable. So I am taking the Bucs 27-21 on Simeon Rice Day. This is the most confident I have been in picking the Bucs to win probably since before the bye. I picked them to beat the Patriots. I wasn't super confident in that. I picked them to I think I picked them to lose to both the Bills and the Rams, but this is the most confident that I have felt in them in picking them to win. I think since the Saints game. Yeah, it would have been the Saints game. So I do have a really good feeling about the way this game is going to play out as long as they can keep all of these guys healthy. Yeah, that's going to be the other big thing. We're all pumped and we're all stoked and excited that Bucky is back on the field and we get to see Bucky do Bucky things. We're excited that Haason Reddick is coming back. We're excited that Ben Bredeson is back, but you got to keep them there once they get there, right? You got to make sure that Baker doesn't go out and miss the Saints game next week. You got to protect him. You got to make sure that sprain gets a little bit better heading into next week. Florida Dreamhouse. Need to see Devin Culp get an opportunity. I'm over Otten. It's funny you bring that up. I had an insider, my buddy Scott from Oklahoma. He brought up kind of a similar sentiment. I am going to talk a little bit more about that moving forward because I would like to see Culp involved in the game, in these offensive game plans a little bit more. There has to be something that we are not seeing that is preventing him from getting opportunities. With O'Keefe out, you have Otten, you have Durham, you have Culp. There's something going on that we're not privy to that is preventing him from getting these opportunities. I love Cade Otton. I do. Genuinely one of the nicest dudes you would ever want to meet. I think he's reliable. I think he provides, kind of a security blanket level of pass catcher to Baker Mayfield, but he's not a game changer. And I tweeted out texted out to the insiders a week or so ago that tight end was one of the draft needs that I feel the Bucs need to address in next year's draft. Some agreed, some didn't, but the Bucs need a Tyler Warren. They need a Trey McBride. They need a 2021 Travis Kelce kind of tight end to go with all of these other receiving weapons to really just make this offense impossible to defend against. I don't think that's Devin Culp. If it's not Cade Otton, I don't think it's Devin Culp. All right. Peace on earth and goodwill towards men says Bucs 20-16. Godwin gets 100 yards and a touchdown. I would be so excited if Godwin busted off for 100. He needs it, but I think, again, he's slowly being worked in, very similar to how we're going to see Bucky and Reddick in this one. Gene Felipe Martin, bold prediction, 3 interceptions and 5 more sacks for the Bucs defense. I love that. Destined for greatness, 21-17 Bucs. Player of the game is Tykee Smith, at least 1 sack and 2 turnovers. I like that one a lot. Demon Hunter, 38-3 Bucs, 9 sacks, 2 forced fumbles and fumble recoveries, 2 interceptions. So calling for almost a double-digit sack game for the Bucs defense and 4 takeaways. If you're right, Demon Hunter, hats off to you. That would be amazing, and we would have all kinds of fun on the live show following the game. Daytona Dad, haven't seen you in a while. Player of the game, Levante, Score 30-23 Bucs. Let's see. We got Steven Stansfield. Bucs, Haason Reddick sacks Brissett for a safety, and that seals the win for the Bucs 28-24. I love that. Let's see. Let me get like one or two more. Tones Mac says, Mr. Yarcho, honestly, you could be a great coach. Really, I appreciate the sentiment. I tried and I failed miserably. Turns out I'm a much better basketball coach than I am a football coach. So I don't think I'm going to get into the football coaching game ever again. Then again, my kids are older. It's up to their school coaches now. Had to kind of pass the baton there. But I tried with 3 of my 4 boys to coach football, and I discovered that the way that I understand the game and the way that I try to explain the game doesn't resonate with kids. And it was a very humbling experience, but I appreciate the sentiment. I truly do. You guys are the best. Last one, we're going to go with Blue Boater. Bucs are getting 30 plus with me in the house, 33-10 Bucs. Blue Boater, I hope you have a great time. I hope you enjoy the Ring of Honor induction of Simeon Rice. I hope you get to walk away from this one after seeing the Buccaneers win. It should be a great time. And again, if you can, go check it out. Guys, like I'm 100% honest when I talk about Game Time on this show, that I use them all the time. You can get some really cheap Bucs tickets. So if you're in a spot where you can make it, I highly recommend you do it. Danny says, happy Thanksgiving to the Locked On Bucs Nation. Happy Thanksgiving to you, Danny. And again, happy Thanksgiving. Hope you guys had a great time. That is going to do it for this episode. I will be back with a live post-game reaction on Sunday. And then Sunday night, we have the squad show. So you're going to get double lives on Sunday. In the meantime, check out everything going on Twitter at Locked On Bucs, at JYarcho_Bucs. Subscribe on YouTube with the notifications turned on so you know when we go live, as well as wherever you get podcasts. Become a Locked On Bucs insider. Go to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnBucs or click the link in the show notes. If you want to support the show, but you don't want to be an insider, it's easy. Like this episode on YouTube, leave a 5-star review wherever you get podcasts. It does help other Buccaneers fans find the show. Hope you all have an absolutely outstanding day. Stay safe, stay healthy, fire the cannons. I want to thank you so much for joining me right here on Locked On Bucs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.